I mentioned before the break, now Trump is not the only candidate running who has a mugshot. Just FYI, it was 30 years ago, and he was going 96 in a 55 and was accused of being very drunk. He was arrested for DUI. He reportedly then lied to police about being deaf in an attempt to avoid the arrest. He later pleaded it down to reckless driving and was convicted. I mean, when you plead guilty, you're convicted of that. So he's got an arrest record as well. And maybe that is one of the reasons why he was so empathetic toward the BLM protesters who ruined one of Minnesota's greatest, biggest cities, Minneapolis, post the death of George Floyd, when he sat for days and let it burn, notwithstanding urgent pleas from the mayor of Minneapolis, who was also a hot mess. But this too will come back to haunt him, Batya, because what happened in Minneapolis was dark. We actually do have some of the video queued up just to bring people back to what was happening while Tim Walz sat there, apparently musing about how wonderful socialism is. Watch.
Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up!
9901, 9901 emergency. We got individuals breaching the gate at the 3rd precinct. We also got people trying to breach the front doors.
Well, to breach the back gate. You're taking heavy rock.
Heavy rock. Airing information citywide. The 3rd precinct has been compromised.
3rd precinct is up in flames.
We're gonna move back. They're starting to throw Molotov cocktails. We're going. The protesters are the ones that feel like these streets are their streets, which you will hear people chant. Protesters here, and of course, there's an explosion because there is gas and there are all kinds of things inside of these cars.
All right, just one more for you. J.D. Vance commented on this today while on the campaign trail. I think he's on the airplane here. Watch.
This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because, of course, Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020, and then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail. So it is more instructive for what it says about Kamala Harris, that she doesn't care about the border, she doesn't care about crime, she doesn't care about American energy, and most importantly, she doesn't care about the Americans who have been made to suffer under those policies.
What do you make of that, Batya?
This stuff looks like it's far left, right? The Green New Deal scam, as Trump calls it, the allowing of the burning down of working class neighborhoods, the ratification of children being taken away from parents because they want to amputate parts of their bodies. This is class warfare, okay? Let's call it what it is. Of course, it's far left. Of course, it's radical. Of course, it's extreme. But the salient factor here is that it is class warfare on hard-working, normal Americans who just want to be left alone to live their lives. They just want enough money to support their families and raise their children in beautiful, nice communities. And this is what is taken away from them by these radical far left policies, because, Megyn, the truth is that being progressive is a class proposition. It is about having an elite university degree that then gives you somehow the right to lecture people who are struggling to make it and impose upon them laws that make them poorer, that make them less safe, and make it impossible for them to raise children and retire in dignity. And that is really what this ticket represents.
I mean, the BLM riots coming back up and his sitting there, Rich, it's great fodder.
Yep.
I mean, to be honest, Trump was president when that happened, which could also come back to haunt.
Yeah, but he's not the governor of the state, and the basic rule is you don't let your police stations get run over and burned to the ground, right? The very basic. Everyone understands
Which they did.
And he failed by that metric. His statements about this are the worst sort of progressive excuses for lawlessness, saying if we don't put diversity and inclusion at the center of what we do, this is what happens. No, this is what happens when people run out of control and they're not stopped by the authorities. And that was, by the way, another A+ statement you played there from J.D. Vance. Again, it's not just that Walz failed, linking it to the radicalism of Kamala Harris, who is in effect on the side of these rioters by supporting a bail fund that was getting them out of jail. That 2020 period was a time in our life when the left went crazy. And both Walz and Kamala have a lot on their record from that period.
Yes, not only did she absolutely tweet out a link to the fund that was bailing out these rioters, but she's on camera saying it's not going to stop. Watch.
I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not. This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
Rich, is anyone else getting a little nervous? Like, I know it's a good thing that she selected such a radical person, because I think it probably increases Trump's chances. But I'm getting a little scared at the thought of that pair in the White House.
Yeah, it's the most left-wing ticket that we've ever experienced, and she'd be the most left-wing president we've ever had, I think, easily outpacing Barack Obama. And, what she's doing there, it's kind of the Al Sharpton play for years and years. Whenever he wanted something, wasn't getting a political agenda, it was going to be a long, hot summer, which is like, watch out, riots are coming, right? It's a way to use riots as a threat. And that's basically what she was doing. And it's not just that many parts of Minneapolis burned down and those several nights of disorder. There was elevated crime and gunplay and murder, maybe still to this day. I haven't looked at the exact figures, but for a long time. And to Batya's point, ordinary, hardworking, minority, largely, folks lived in those neighborhoods, and they're the ones who paid the price. So these progressive shibboleths and an inability to insist on what we want from our authorities, above all, safety and order, hurt them most. And that's among the reasons that it's so shameful.
He also loved the COVID lockdowns, Batya. Oh, he loved them. He actually set up a hotline for one neighbor to report on another neighbor for not complying with his draconian orders. That's who he is. That's who she is. That actually is who most Democrats are. They also loved the COVID overreach, except for the normies who have since crossed over to voting Republican. I know a lot of them.
And except Josh Shapiro, who was very good on COVID and opposed the vaccine mandates at a time when every other Democrat was pushing them, at a time now when everybody knows they were a mistake.
It's crazy. If you're tired of the same old coffee from those mega corporations pushing their woke agendas, listen up. It's time to take a stand and support a brand that embodies American values. At Blackout Coffee, they stand with hardworking Americans who believe in family, faith, and freedom. They roast some of the most incredible coffee you will ever taste using only premium grade beans. And guess what? They roast and ship within 48 hours. And that ensures that you get the freshest coffee possible. You could start your day with a bold cup of Blackout coffee and be delighted, just like yours truly. Plus, it's not just coffee, it's a statement. Why settle for less? Make the switch to Blackout Coffee today by heading over to blackoutcoffee.com/MK, or just use the code MK for 20% off your first order. That's blackoutcoffee.com/MK, and the code is MK. Join the movement. Taste the difference. Remember, with every sip, you're supporting a brand that stands for America. Be awake, not woke. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.